Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast. This is your host, Brittany, and today we are joined by Alex and Lydia from 3D Pets. So Alex and Lydia, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Brittany.
So I have followed 3D Pets for a while on social media, and I love it, and we're going to talk all about it today. But first, let's talk about the two of you. Tell us what you do, how you're involved at 3D Pets, and how you got started there.
I'm Alex. I'm one of the co-founders here alongside my partner, Adam. Lydia is our director of operations, and she's been with us pretty much since the get-go. We all studied college at Thomas Jefferson University. Adam and I focused on the human side of pre-surgical models, so we were taking CTs, MRIs, X-rays, and turning those into models that the doctors could use before going into surgery, and Lydia was doing the same thing on the veterinary side. And so when Adam and I started our business, we were doing a lot of consulting work, and we had begun working for a gentleman who was already in the veterinary space when it came to orthotics and prosthetics. So Lydia was our initial intern, actually. We had built a relationship, we built out this digital tool, and that's kind of where everything started, was about 5 or 6 years ago.
And tell us what 3D Pets does. We're going to jump into more specifics, but just generally, for people who haven't heard of you yet, what is 3D Pets?
Should I, or should you do the honors?
I don't know. I feel like we both could. It's a very broad statement. 3D Pets is a lot of fun, and we do a lot of good things for dogs.
We design and build mobility devices for animals. We do a lot of prosthetics, we do some orthotics, and we do a lot of wheelchairs.
Yeah, we kind of jump into the gaps in the market. So you see a lot of partial limbs and braces and things like that out there, but what you don't see a lot of is the full limb prosthetics for dogs missing their full front leg. So that's kind of where we sit.
And how did you guys come up with this concept? I mean, you obviously were studying a related field in college. So what drove you to find the gaps in the market and to fill those?
Well, like I had mentioned briefly, we were acting as consultants when we first started the business, using the knowledge that we had from the surgical models and applying that in the veterinary field. We had brought a few really key people together to help us develop a digital tool, a software, if you will, and combine 3D scanning and 3D printing. And the relationship just didn't age well, and we realized that we could do something really powerful if we pivoted a little bit, and so that's when we started 3D Pets. And we've been operating as 3D Pets since 2021. We built over how many devices?
We're going to hit our 1,000th device this month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so we're very specialized in what we build. We do turn away a lot of clients that don't fit in perfectly with what we're able to offer, whether the pet's just not a good candidate or the home's not a good candidate. That also makes us stand out from the crowd too, is we're very willing to say no to make sure that we have high product adoption. But that's kind of where we got our start.
Yeah, we don't want to sell to people who have unrealistic expectations. Getting a prosthetic, it takes a lot of time and dedication and training. And if the dog's mobility is already so declined, these people will sometimes come to us you can bring the mobility back. If they don't have realistic expectations like that, then we have a different conversation with them. So it's not to be mean or exclude anybody, but just
right.
Yeah.
Right. Just setting those expectations. You don't want to make a promise that you can't keep.
Absolutely.
Do you find that 3D Pets works primarily with owners directly, like pet owners, or do you guys work with vets, or is it a combination?
It's a combination. When we first started, it was very much with the owners. And as we've grown, as we've done more trade shows, as we've done more education, it's become a lot more balanced. I would say this year more than any, we have more word-of-mouth referrals by vet professionals, rehabilitation specialists, and so forth, which has been really wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the devices that are offered. So I initially thought it was just prosthetics, but you've got prosthetics, carts, orthotics, and accessories. So I think there's products that I don't even know of. So I think when most people think of this, they think prosthetics. So can you tell us a little bit about each kind of category and the purpose that it serves, or the traditional client for that product?
Yeah. You want me to?
I'll start off with the prosthetics you pick up. So 3dpetsprosthetics.com is the website. We started with the full limb prosthetics. It's when we realized that we could use the same technology and a lot of the same systems and apply that towards wheelchairs and some of the orthotics that we realized that we could expand the products that we were offering. So that's really where the name came from. But if you want to talk about some of the wheelchairs.
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned most of them. I feel like sometimes I don't even know some of the products that we offer. We're very bad at saying no when there's a unique opportunity that comes along and there's a dog that needs us and could benefit from us. So yes, the full limb prosthetics is kind of where we started. So for any dogs that have had their full forelimb amputated or still have like a shoulder and a little bit of a nub, basically if they have not enough for a partial limb, that's kind of where we step in. So we've got the ability to create basically a cage around their remainder or scapula if they have one. Otherwise, the side is fully enclosed. And then there's a completely custom jacket that is made to their specifications and parameters using the custom algorithm that Alex mentioned earlier. And then it's 3D printed out of a TPU, which is just a semi-flexible material. This is kind of your zone. But yeah, so that allows it to be lightweight and breathable, waterproof, and the algorithm allows us to allocate structure where we need it and flexibility where we need it. So where the leg is mounted to is pretty rigid. You don't want a lot of flexibility there, but around the rib cage, around their like torso and the rib cage, it's pretty flexible so that the harness and the jacket is able to move with the pet as it breathes, which is super important.
And if you ship one of these out, I mean, does it fit normally like 98, 99% of the time since it is custom, or are people like trying them on their dog and maybe sending them back for revisions? Like, how does that work?
Usually it's a pretty good fit.
Yeah.
So if people are doing this remotely on their own, they're casting their own pets. And when we receive the cast, usually we're able to tell if the pet and the owner followed our instructions and the pet was standing, they were kind of, they were straight, they weren't curved or leaning, they didn't lay down during the process. And so typically if we have a good cast, then we get a good device as a result.
We guarantee the fit. And so we've become very good at kind of diagnosing what's going to work and what's not. We have the owner send us photos of the molds too before they send them in so that we can kind of judge if it's going to work well or not, if they should restart. But to add some clarity to your question earlier too, so in addition to the prosthetics, we offer these trike-style carts. So these are really for dogs that have forelimb deformities or some type of amputation and so forth. And we also offer these really unique Dachshund-style forelimb wheelchairs as well, and quad carts. We do offer some cranial helmets, and we have done a number of like other unique style devices. As Lydia said earlier, there's sometimes we don't say no, like partial limb prostheses if the case is right. We've done some really exotic animals in the past, so it just depends.
Yeah, currently we're working on something really exciting, and I can't wait for it to come out. But the Key West Aquarium has 2 sea turtles that are in need of prosthetics for their flippers, and so we're working with them to 3D print them some custom ones.
Cool.
Alex went to Sri Lanka to work with an elephant, so just some like really, really cool opportunities.
Cows, alpacas. And one of the things we didn't mention, the reason that we can get these really accurate molds or these harnesses to fit is the 3D scanning technology. So we're having our patients sometimes use iPhones to 3D scan their pets at home. That's what we use here for all of our in-house scanning appointments is an iPhone with a custom app that we have. And so the technology has really come so far, and that's what's really allowed us to design and build these devices so uniquely compared to the competition, if you will. And that's what really makes us stand out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. I never really thought about 3D printing a prosthetic or really any of this stuff. You kind of have this like idea of just like a rigid metal material. And oftentimes you think that it's not necessarily custom. It's just like a single piece of metal with kind of like a strap on it, like that's, I think, what a lot of people envision when they think of this particular topic.
Yeah. The traditional way of making prosthetics and orthotics is by way of thermoforming. And for those that don't know, that's essentially the heating of large plastic sheets and then wrapping them around typically a plaster of Paris mold. And it is very effective. It's been used for many decades. But to have access to this technology, to have it at a price point that works so well, and to have access to the materials that also work, I would argue maybe a little bit better than the traditional plastics, I think gives you a lot of runway to innovate. And I think that's really the core of what we've done.
Mm-hmm. If a pet parent maybe they don't know where to start, they have a dog that's an amputee or maybe just lost mobility of a leg or two legs, are you able to help them decide, like, we need a prosthetic or we need a wheelchair or 3D Pets isn't for you, we might suggest this? Like, is that something that people could come to you for?
Yeah. So they could call, email, reach out to us on social media. Email's the best if anybody's wondering. But they can essentially submit their case, and then we'll have them fill out a candidacy application. And we ask a bunch of qualifying questions, like their age, their weight, their activity level. We ask for photos so that we can kind of see. And then once they go through that, we'll get on a call with them. So we have a call with every single person that applies that we would consider a good candidate for a device to make sure that really this would fit in well to their lifestyle. And then we kind of talk through what the devices are used for and see. And so if they aren't a candidate, then we'll often refer them to somewhere that we think would better suit their needs. Or if it's a really, really strange case, then we have a really awesome board that we can consult full of veterinarians and rehab therapists. And they're all really wonderful. And so they'll give us some feedback as well. Mm-hmm. But we also always encourage people to loop their vets in and their PTs and rehabbers because they know the pets better than we do. And so if they think that a mobility device is warranted, then I think it's excellent for them to have a fully rounded team of professionals that can really point them in the right direction for their pet.
One thing I'll add to that too is when we started the business, the orthotic space had been very well developed for the veterinary side. The prosthetics really hadn't been, especially for the full limbs, and the wheelchairs had been as well. So this entire time we've been doing a lot of educating. We've been going to a lot of shows, we've been talking to a lot of professionals, and of course word of mouth has allowed us to spread quite easily, and some of the commercials that we've been a part of. And so the educating has really kind of taken off, I'd say, recently, and that's really been very powerful. They don't necessarily teach all of these things in vet school and med school and rehab school, and so we do our best to really educate where we can. And I think there's a lot of light to it.
Is there ever, let me rephrase that. Are there scenarios where someone applies and immediately they're not a good candidate? Like, are there red flags that just alert you right off the bat?
Yeah, cancer is a very touchy subject. It's an awful thing, and we do our best to be very conscious of where they are in their recovery stage. If there's a deformity that would be better suited for a partial limb, for instance, if the dog has a rear limb amputation, that's just not something that has been developed for yet. So there are a good handful of scenarios, and thankfully...
The other one is cats. People ask all the time for us to put things on their cats.
Very true.
And the reality of it is, the way that cats move, they jump on counters, up trees.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like to wear things. So, restricting a cat in that way isn't going to do anything to aid them. So, sometimes it's a hard conversation when people are like, why do you want to help my cat? And that's not it. We want your cat to be able to jump on the counter and not have a leg that's in the way and to be able to live as a cat would. They also don't compensate in the same way as dogs or larger different breeds of animals do. So cats, I'm sorry, cats are, they don't come to us.
Thankfully they do a lot better as tripods, if you will, as Lydia mentioned, because of their compensation versus a dog.
Now that said, if a cat were to have an open fontanelle and need a helmet or something like that, that's a different scenario. But a full limb on a cat is just not something that they like. We've tried. they really don't like it.
But again, this is why we do the evaluations.
Yeah.
And the best way, you'd ask this question, the best way for somebody to start is just go to the website and fill out a candidacy form. If you are not sure of the questions asked, it'll just shoot us a direct message and we'll give you a ring and we'll figure out what's going to work for you. So we try and make it pretty painless.
Yeah. You mentioned the helmet a few times. Tell me when a pet would need a helmet, because I'm sitting here thinking like, I've never seen a dog with a helmet ever.
The helmets are a lot of fun. Usually it's open fontanelle cases, so when like a pet has a hole that hasn't closed in their skull, that's when they come to us. We've had some dogs that have had craniectomies, so they're missing pieces of their skull intentionally. Hydrocephalus is another one. We had one dog one time that was, he had seizures, and he would always fall and knock the side of his head and his chin. And so we built him a helmet for that. So they don't come as often, but when they do, they can be really rewarding, because it's a very simple device.
It's not a stretch for us to do.
Yeah, it's super easy, but it makes a world of difference for a dog, because if you have a dog or a goat, Bo the goat is one that you guys will see all over our Instagram. He had hydrocephalus or not hydrocephalus, he had an open fontanelle. And goats love to headbutt, and so they wouldn't let him out with all of his buddies, because then they would try and headbutt the soft spot in his skull, and he could get really injured from that. So once he had his helmet on, it was like a literal whole new world for him. Like, he could go out, he could be with the other goats, he could headbutt, he could do whatever he wanted.
He was in quarantine.
Yeah, and he was protected, and so it just made a ton of difference for him.
I'll also add to that, too, the difference with us versus the traditional way of making helmets is you actually have to wrap the dog's head with bandages to get the mold to then fill with plaster, which can be very dangerous. And so for us to be able to just quickly 3D scan the head and have them on their way is very advantageous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there ever a case where you've made a helmet for a blind dog that they're like, hey, my dog runs into everything? Like, does that ever warrant a helmet, or you're like, no, like y'all really don't need a helmet for that?
There's a product out there called Muffin's Halo.
Yeah.
We're good friends with the people that own that business. It's a great solution. It's inexpensive. Something like that is really good. It's at least a good place to start.
Yeah.
And if they're running into the wall and that's just not deterring them, then we can kind of step in. But that's a good first step.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I had to ask. My 16-and-a-half-year-old, she's losing her vision, especially in the dark, and she just keeps ramming her head into the bed. And I'm just like, does that hurt? Do you need a helmet? Do we need protective gear? So I had to ask, because I was like, maybe I should get her a helmet, and it could look really cute. But we're not going for aesthetics here. I get it.
We cover that part, but
yeah. So you guys also have on the website some resources. Can you talk a little bit about what pet owners can find within those resources?
We have a lot of FAQs from the questions that we've gotten asked over the years. So we try and culminate all of those and put them on the website. There's a few unbiased resource links as to the benefits of mobility devices, which we like the pet parents to read to just educate themselves. We have resource videos on our products as well, how to install or uninstall things, modify, change. We like to give a lot of power to the owners. And then I mentioned the install videos. What else am I forgetting?
I mean, that's pretty much it.
Right.
There's a couple news articles and videos and things that are not specific to us, that are just about when your pet might need a mobility device and what you might consider. Yeah, I think you nailed it.
It's a good place to go to learn more about it and get some base understanding of what we're capable of.
Yeah, for sure. So plug your website for anyone that's curious, and also social media, because I'm sure everyone wants to see the goat and everyone else.
We'll have to do another little feature post of him so that everyone can see it. So our website it's just 3dpetsprosthetics.com.
I work here, but I don't know the website.
I know,
right?
7 times a day. Petsprosthetics.com is the website.
PS, by the way.
Yes.
Prosthetics, plural.
And then our email is info@3dpetsprosthetics.com. Yes.
You got it.
You take over.
And then our Instagram is 3d.pets. And you can also find us on TikTok and YouTube there as well.
And Facebook.
all
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Alex and Lydia, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited for the listeners to just hear about what you guys offer. I'm sure we're going to help so many pets just spreading the word. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is an excellent opportunity.
Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.